Good day, everybody. Today we're going to have a studio visit with Luisa Martinez, who is based in Tijuana, Mexico. She is also my neighbor and a really outstanding collaborator. There we are, Luisa's on here, so we're going to try and do this communication happening. And Luisa's a with an array of different skill sets, which we'll be introduced to. One of the things that I really love about Luisa and her work is that it has a very, how can I say, it's really friendly. Whenever I see her work, I feel drawn to explore more about what the illustration is sharing, and as I start to discover what the drawing or the incentive of the gesture is, it always has a really powerful message as an undertone. And I think that that's a really important part to experiencing Luisa's work. And I don't know why this is having some problems, but sometimes that happens. Not a big deal. Sending Luisa a request, and she has to accept it. There we are.
So my Wi-Fi kind of sucks, so if I cut out, let me know and we'll move spaces. So it's listening to you, but like delayed.
No worries, it's okay. People are joining now, so that's all that matters. Well, good morning, Luisa.
Morning.
You enjoying your coffee?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, David made me coffee.
Nice.
In the front, yeah. Yeah. What's up?
So where are you at right now?
Yeah, this is gonna be. Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh wow, we have a delay.
Yep.
Yeah, the delay is kind of intense. So where in TJ are you? Where in Tijuana are you
Colonia
located?
Federal, right by the border, by the Chaparral border crossing.
And I'm real familiar with it because we're neighbors. So I have to tell you, thank you for opening the doors to that community, because I feel like you live in a really interesting situation, surrounded by a bunch of artists, right?
Yeah. So it's a place called Espacio Mariposa, and it's mainly people who make art living here. A bunch of photographers, a couple visual artists, a musician. Yeah. And we have a communal space that we can look at in a little bit, where we can use it as a gallery. We've had shows here. My partner David, who's somewhere, ran a project called Out Here, where he did shows, and then we do like independent shows too.
Yeah, I think that's how we know each other is throughout here. But beyond that, we know each other through other kind of projects. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah. So, like I said, Out Here is my partner David's project. So I think we met through that with a show by Carmina and Carlos, El Sol del Rack, in your space in Long Beach. So I helped with that, and that's how we met. And then you're always really excited to collaborate with people, so you invited us to do a show in your space and just like hang out, and so we did that. Our first like 2-person show was also in Cactus Long Beach, and then just been friends since.
Yeah, I want to say two things on that. Like one, the text for the show No Pasa Nada, No Pasa Nada with Carlos El Solerac and Carminopolis was awesome and really beautiful. But also, like when it came down to your 2-person show with David, it was really beautiful that you created this like interactive setting with people that came into the gallery, and all you did was well, not all you did, but what you did is you converted what I think is like a shoe holder or something like that, and then you added your prints to it, and it had this really wonderful back and forth with people. And I remember everybody that experienced or did the trade for the print left with a huge smile and made an effort to tell me how wonderful the experience was for your show. So I just wanted to compliment you and your capacity to like not just view how you create, but like to engage on a nonverbal communication with another person.
Yeah, I feel like that is somewhat of a big part of like my practice. Maybe because like I consider myself like very shy and like have a lot of social anxiety. Like going to a party is either really fun or I just like want to cry. So like having a nonverbal way to like communicate with other people is like super important. So I really like that game too. And it was like a shoe rack type of thing. And each pocket had, yeah, a gift, right? Like a print or a sticker or something. And then, but you also had to do a trade. So there was a bowl. I think I still have the answers around here. Um, so there was a bowl with some questions, and then people had to respond to the question to get a print. So like you had paper, and then you grabbed them and you responded, and you grabbed your print. Like self-service, you didn't. I guess you could have not answered and taken a print, but it's just like trust. So this is pertinent. It's a little sad, but this is from like what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. It's in 2018.
So the first strip, sorry to bum out your mornings, but the first strip I pulled out of these like answers I've had laying around for forever is why do you cry? ¿Por qué razones lloras? So much pain in the world right now. Sad face. So I think we live in a matrix, so that was part of the that was part of the programming.
But I feel like that's also like one of the beautiful things about this nonverbal communication that you set up is that like it's unfiltered and that type of uncanniness is what's rich about what you set up. It's like you you never hold yourself like damn it, I don't know how to say this without like thinking too hard about it. It's like you're really thoughtful in how you address questions and you don't hold back about your curiosity. So it's not like you censor yourself for other people, like you're very straightforward about what you think. And I think that question is like something that requires a lot of empathy to ask and to be considerate about because who asked that question if you're not really interested in knowing?
Yeah, I hope so. And I am really interested in the answers. And I think like through teaching I've learned that like I don't know, asking questions is the best way to like learn and evolve as people and like we're never gonna probably find answers, but like the question asking is what's important. Um and like another example is like this zine that David and I made. He's putting his shoes on right now. Hi. He's gonna take the dog for a walk. So we made this Linea Linea zine, and it's like border artists that got to answer some prompts that like maybe were interesting, maybe were silly, right? One was like, what does the border sound like? What do you need to know before you cross the border? When was the first time you crossed? And this could be, I don't know, we like explain it in a way that it could be literally like the Tijuana San Diego border, just could be like a border. And we had photographers, musicians, visual artists, and we hope this one grows. We're trying to, you know, keep it usually, I don't know, like I'm always between like anybody can participate, and this one was like one that was supposed to be open. Like we did an interactive workshop where the prompts were there for anybody to answer, but it's worked really good to have like specific people like in the printed piece. We have like really amazing responses. I'm just gonna share So one question was advice for myself when crossing for the first time, and this is Collective Magpie, and they just, can you see? It's flipped, right? I'll read it to you. Or no, I know it.
Mm.
There. So just a list of no's, right? No talking back, no delays, no ugly clothes, no fresh flowers, no birthday cakes, no questions, no oranges, no feelings, no instruments, no large heads. And then you flip the page, and it's a list of yes. Yes, oppression. Yes, set structure. Yes, one culture. Yes, breathing with caution. Yes, disappointment. Yes, invisible compliments. Yes, meekness. And I think you can get like really, I don't know, beautiful and like juicy things when you let people do their own thing, and all you're doing is like asking a question or offering a space to interact. And I don't know what we were talking about, but I went on a rant.
No, but I do want to chime in on two things. Like one, like the dynamic of living in the border and how there's parallels to that with borders all over the world, right? Like not every border is the same, but this particular border is extremely interesting because it's like that port of entry in Tijuana has been a cultural uh, like like how American culture enters Mexico for the longest time was through Tijuana.
Yeah.
And so I think that now uh, seeing the parallels of that border relationship with, places like Palestine or even like Panama, like has like a real interesting conversation because when you drive into Tijuana from San Diego, you're like in like the U.S. highway and stuff, and then you cross over it, and it's like completely different. And I think that contrast is really important to highlight. The other thing that I wanted to say in regards to your publications is that uh, both you and David have had a lot of interactions and have created a platform for engagement with other artists in Tijuana. So things like the Tijuana Zine Fest have been things that just been catapulted one year after another. Um, and so I wanted to maybe ask about how you feel that creating the Tijuana Zine Fest has enabled like this kind of like cultural exchange between the U.S. and Tijuana or Mexico.
I'm moving because Wi-Fi. Yeah. Um, I like to think. I don't know. I think like cultural exchange is a very touchy subject, and I wouldn't want to like condone just like a free for all because I think you have to be aware of like relationships of power that are not the same between like an artist coming from LA and showing their work and like an artist from TJ showing their work. Um, but I do think there has been, or I hope that Tijuana Zine Fest has been a platform for doing that like carefully and like honestly, and like with respect for like both contexts or like different contexts. Um, and I think it has happened because like I said again, I think it's like a recurring thing to like have an idea or like set a platform or ask a question and then let others do what they want to do. So Tijuana Theme Fest has been that, right? Like of course there's a lot of structure because like I'm really I like schedules and I'm really but aside from that, aside from like be here this day, be on time, have your table, like it's a whole day for people to get to know each other. Um, and I think that's been really nice. And like the city itself, like there's a lot of freedom. Like I really respect the work of all Zine Fest organizers. But I will say, because it has to do with the question, that there's a difference, or you can feel there's a palpable difference between having the Zine Fest like at a convention space, which maybe is what's available in your city, and having it like in this like alleyway that is like semi-public, semi-private, where like a bunch of people walk by of all types of life. And I think that's like we can get what we can get here, like what is amazing about TJ, that there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, I think that was the part of the experience that I felt was like absolutely surreal. Like if there wasn't a cover to be a part of the or to go into the Zine Fest, and it was families like going about their normal day, encountering all these artists, and obviously many of them stopped and looked at like the things that were there, but many of them just kind of went through like just as their day. But there was like that moment where like Bitch Cramps was playing and it was just so loud and it was just like completely surreal when the security guard came by and was like, "We gotta cut this." It was just an unreal experience to see how artistic interventions were really felt that day. I feel.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. Honestly, like I used to be out a lot more when I was younger. I've been much more of like a homebody artist, but I do feel that when you like organize events or parties or like I don't know, workshops in public spaces in TJ, especially like in Centro area. Of course, there's a lot of like colonias or neighborhoods that like are further away and don't get that much of that overlap. But in downtown and nearby areas, there is a lot of just like everybody doing their own thing. Like having an errand to run or whatever, and walking through these communal spaces and like peeking in and like joining or not joining, but like knowing that you're there.
Um, can you maybe walk us or show us what type of work you do at home and what type of like we have to see some of your creative expression here. Sorry about the tech delay.
And I do a lot of illustration, but I think I'm mainly like a visual artist and an educator. So I'll show you some different things. I'm really bad at finishing things. So this is a painting that has been in the works.
I think when you move your phone fast, it slows down. But I don't know. It's kind of an interesting situation because we're talking Telmex and
Cut off.
T-Mobile. Yeah, it
Hello?
totally did. I just don't know whether it's on your end or my end or what the deal is, but it's happening. It's happening. All right, we're on here. I can hear you now, yes, but it's real choppy.
Okay.
All right,
um,
I see you.
so I'll try to stay closer to the modem, but this is my office. That is not a real box of wine that's empty. Um, this is my office, and I'll pull some illustrations towards the front of the door. So I was saying, I don't know if y'all heard, but I was saying that I'm an illustrator. I consider myself a visual artist. One of the things I do is illustration, and I draw these types of like feminine bodies. I like what Jorge said about my work, that it was like friendly. Um, I tried to overlap between like cute and I don't know, awkward or disgusting or like gnarly. So I do use a lot of like vibrant colors and like big eyes and just like nice scenarios. But I like to have bodies that like take up a lot of space, or that are usually, I don't know, like naked, and hairy and like just stuff I see in the mirrors. Um, and then there's also zines that I make. Um, I'll bring them outside. Oh, so this, I had like a stint as a like a kindergarten or preschool teacher, and this is one of my students' pieces. And that's my favorite part about teaching. So this is the outside of my apartment, and we're gonna walk towards, like Jorge said, I live in a space called Mariposa, and it's like a bunch of artists that work together. And we have a gallery space that we can like use to put up shows. And before I show you our collaboration, I just wanted to show you two zines. This is from like a summer camp David and I did at a institution in San Diego. And I just like to show my students work because they're always like beyond what you mentioned, right? Like you show them an example and they go like tenfold. And I think that's my favorite part about teaching. It's like some students like using vellum. And this guy, okay, so it's his first zine he ever made. I don't know, he was like 10. And somehow I never showed an example of this. He figured out how to do like a double fold out. That's like, you know, so these are pages of the zine and they like double fold out. And maybe if you don't work with zines or kids, that's not impressive, but that's really impressive. And it was just like a photo walk in Balboa Park, and he went all out.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's super cute. And then this
Yeah.
guy, this is one I made in Mexico City with Otros Dreams en Acción, which is an org in Mexico City that helps Americans that have been deported due to lacking documents. And it's a Rizo zine with like 100 pages of migrant experiences. And this is really like this zine and this experience is like my goal. Like I love drawing and I love doing visual work, but really I think this is, although it is, I don't know, taxing in some sort of way, because like I said, I'm like usually a reserved person. So I recharge being alone, but still like this type this is a 5-week workshop where I collaborated with another artist, Carolina Gomez, and we did like weekly collage and painting and other workshops. And then we took all that work and set up in like a public showing. If you can, that's Zócalo, and there's people holding banners. And these banners are themselves, right? These are like bodies that we painted and carried around the street, and then we replicated them tiny here in the zine. More workshops and dialogues. Yeah, so this has been like one of the highlights of like recent years.
I love that
And
you
also
use
aside
your
from just
skill
like,
set as a publicator or a publisher to be like a driving mechanism for your collaborations with community.
yeah, I was gonna say, aside from being a collaboration with the community and with another artist, I love that there's so many layers to this. Like Casa del Hijo del Aguizote in Mexico City published this for us, but it's a very hands-on publishing, right? Like we were there setting up files and like picking colors and figuring out what size to make it, and like yeah, just having that knowledge of Rizo or like zine design really did help me like figure out this process. And everybody, or a lot of people who were in the workshops, also showed up to like help fold and staple this thing. So super hands on. If you were one of the lucky people to get a copy, really exciting. And yeah, collaborating not only with Oda but with Casa del Hijo and with other like cultural spaces in Mexico City was really nice. And then we can jump on to collaboration with Jorge. So I'm sure most people tuned in know Jorge's work because we're on his channel. But we did these 3D, these like standing, what do you call them, standing paintings?
freestanding paintings.
standing paintings. Yeah. Um, and these are still in process. So we were going to be in a show that was canceled. So we stayed up till 6 a.m. and then we were told it was canceled. So we went to sleep for a month. And I haven't finished
It's
them.
been 2 months. It's been since like early May, early March or something like that.
Yeah.
They're incredible,
But
by
yeah,
the
so
way.
like,
They're incredible.
thank you. It's like those bodies that I make, and like I like a lot of like guts and like juices flowing, and translated into this. Like it was easy for me to envision, but I also would have never thought about it, without the opportunity to work on wood or work on in 3D or like have somebody else cut it out for me. Um, yeah, so I'm still
Yeah,
very excited about.
I really want to show it too because they're so beautiful, and when you see them in person, they look like nothing I've ever done, and they look like nothing that you've ever done, but they definitely feel like your work and my work combined in a very beautiful way.
Yeah, and I like doing. I don't have an example right now, but I like doing a lot of installation-y stuff. Like I have made like big cardboard bodies and like textile guts types of things. Um, but it was always kind of like a blown up 2D doodle, right? And I really like the space that these take up, um, and that opportunity to be less of a like a huge drawing and more of like a 3D thing. Because like I said, part of my drawing, part of like the idea for my drawings is that these figures are taking up space. So even more literally, these figures are taking up space. This is my quote.
Corita,
This is my favorite part of the world.
and it's yeah, yeah, she's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So that's a collage, right? Like the surface on there is a collage.
Yeah. So this is a collage that we made from my partner David is like super neat and clean, so it's like makes his eye twitch that I have a bunch of boxes with like receipts or like old papers or like mail that I refuse to throw out. But it proved useful this time because it's a bunch of like old reso prints and like wrapping paper and like a note from like 2 years ago. And we were able to like collage them in this piece, which I think is really exciting. Even like a baby, like a student's drawing, some drawings from like my birthday in 2016, I think, stuff like that.
One of the things that I remember going through when I was working with you on this is that there was a real sense of like empathy with your line, and it was really challenging because the way that you draw, the way that things move, are extremely foreign to the type of movements that I do, right? And so I remember thinking that even in how I cut the wood, I had to think about how to make that line in like a four different cuts to get to that line to make it look like how it's supposed to look, and that was really difficult for me to like get like reset, change, and like meet it in another way. But what was nice is that it would also help me see the negative space in your drawings with a lot more appreciation. Can you maybe talk about how it is that you see the push pull in your compositions?
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if like um, I'm not great with words with what I was trying to say. Um, but I think it was, we started drawing this on an airplane flight to Mexico City. Um, and you were like explaining how you need certain cuts to like go deep enough so like it's bendy but like not too deep so it breaks, and like I think I really tried to like understand that and envision how it would affect the piece, and how like those lines, like this thing going to the eyeball, could not be just like a whatever line, like a functional line, but also like be part of the shape of the piece. So like the drawing came before the fact that it could stand, right? So it was a flat drawing. And I knew it was like I wanted this scene of like bodies and like guts and stuff. And I guess it just like seemed I don't know, like a good solution, that it would be the bolder gut elements that would be pulling towards the front, and just like bodies around it in the background. And I like how, because you mentioned maybe because my drawings are so like I don't know, bold or flat, but you mentioned that like sometimes when you cut the pieces, like the image that the artist drew like doesn't, the 3D effect or the push and pull kind of messes with what they had drawn, because it affects it in a certain way. But I think these were like bold enough and just like squiggly enough to where like they're affected in a positive way. It just adds like a light. Um, yeah, and that's
Well, I can speak to that directly because when I was cutting it, I was like, some of the decisions that you made were decisions that I wouldn't think about originally,
mm-hmm.
because you were like, you were like, intentionally, I'm going to make a window to create space in these areas here. And I know that this line has to be longer, and you connected it to the eye and all that stuff. But like for example, that area with the golden crown or the hand, that like bubble, yeah,
This.
like that was that, and like, and how it's flanked on the other, on the right hand side, like that shit was like totally new to me, and I was like really mesmerized by what a cool decision was to do that. How it turned out, it was really like, I mean, I remember thinking like, this is a really good move, and then you kept doing more moves like that, so I thought that was good. And I learned a lot in making this one. So, and both of them really, because even the little one with like the big spiral that goes in is just so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that shape. Yeah, it
Lisa,
was.
sorry,
Yeah.
you first.
No, go ahead.
Mm.
Oh, I was just gonna say that I learned a lot too, and it was fun to like I could imagine it, but because I think really fast, but I act really slow. So a lot of the times the projects that I think of don't get completed. So it's really fun to think of something and then have your skills complete it and actually get to look at it, before 3 years have passed and it's like sitting in my house.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I kind of miss seeing it because it looks so good that night. I was just like, I want to have it, I want to keep it, all this other stuff. I want to be selfish. Sorry. Uh, can you tell us a little bit more about like what type of references led you to develop your drawing style?
Can you say that again?
Could you maybe tell us a little bit about what led to the development of your drawing style, or like the aesthetic of what you draw? Like what influenced you, or how it is that you refined that perspective over time?
Um, sure, I can try. I really like don't. I don't know. I just like. I think it's what I look at. Like it's a lot of illustrators that I really enjoy. Or I think more these days because it's popular and because it's urgent to talk about. There's a lot of like femininity in illustration. Um, so I think I've definitely just like seeing other people um, just like illustrate these concepts really makes me comfortable in doing so myself. Um, and I'm always asked if like Adventure Time is an influence. I'm like, I've watched one episode. Don't kill me. Don't unfollow me. But You know, it's like, but also I do believe that even if we don't watch, like we're still seeing things. So it's, yeah, it probably does factor in that like people around me are like, you know, wearing certain graphics or watching certain shows. And I think honestly I haven't like thought about it that thoroughly, but I do think there's like an overlap, like a frustrating overlap in my style in relation to, I don't know, like consumer culture. Like I make a lot of things that could be considered cute, right? And especially like in working in culture, you have the opportunity to create these like stickers and pins and like little objects. And the other day I posted like a meme that was like, I don't know, like my thing is like filling up my cart and then like emptying out and convincing myself not to buy anything. Like I definitely feel like affected and like addicted to to just like capitalism. But I try really hard to like fight against it. Um, so I think there's an overlap there with like, you know, like Hello Kitty stuff and just like having cute things that you can have, but also using that as a channel to like, you know, make these women like fat and hairy and take up space and like give everything away because I don't really care about selling it. I just care about the fact that it's like cute and like nice. Um, yeah.
I really appreciate what you said because it's like cultural reappropriation of capitalistic intentions, right? So like the Hello Kitty, but through your view, right? You're reflecting all of these different things, and as opposed to being complacent to what it is that they're like feeding us through popular media, you're you're like responding to that in your own way. And I do like that symbolism there. And I also find that like your relationship to capitalism is like this like constant fight against it. So like while you accept like this capitalistic tendency to want to acquire, at the same time you're constantly filtering yourself and like reminding yourself that there's excess, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm moving. Sorry about the weird moving around, but Wi-Fi really sucks. But yeah, I mean it's definitely like a IRL like frustration, like constant thought, constant awareness, and I inevitably it gets transmitted in my work. But if I were to like, you know, sit down and really think about it, I do feel there's like a very like strong connect, like you said, and like a really um, I don't know, intentional maybe, but also just like overpowering use of this type of object, right? Um, yeah, and it has a lot to do with just the world that we live in, but also I think this idea of the zine fest and like the independent artists and this like frustration between like, you know, being an independent artist doesn't mean you have to like sell a bunch of like tchotchkes and, you know, yeah.
That's a really difficult line to kind of navigate as an artist, and particularly now, right? Because if you decide to be an artist, it doesn't matter what stage in your career you are, right? The idea is to like find some type of like fiscal support for your creativity, right? So the traditional method is like, oh, we find a gallery, the gallery helps you sell your work, and then that helps provide some sense of stability. However, like there's no emerging artist galleries that can provide income support. There's no mid-tier galleries anymore, and you know that the blue chip galleries, the ones that really do make the difference, like those are completely saturated with like I think a handful of artists that just like dominate the market. So if you're making art and you're trying to survive, like I can't make this kind of work and like expect people to want to buy it and put it in the living room. You know what I mean? It's not that type of work. So I have to continue to do these things individually by my own drive. And in your case, like I feel one of the things that you do is that like you empower people to be creative and you yourself are creative, and then you create a community to grow together. And I feel like that is such a powerful lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I want to believe so. All right, yeah, I think that's what we try to do. Especially we're like lucky enough to live in this space where we have a gallery that we can use, and just like I think Tijuana really does help too because I don't like this whole idea that like there's no rules, but there's definitely like a sense of freedom in TJ, and like you can have like a really loud band in like a communal space. So there's more opportunity to just like invite and like be invited and like create something together. Um, and to me, that's more important than like the object. And I think that's also like why I'm like I say I'm a visual artist and like I'm an educator. Like an educator is like a really important part of that definition. Um, and it's just like being able to have these skills, but like not skills like in process, but also like in thought and like critical thinking, and like not keep them to myself, because like what use is that, right? Yeah, so I think
It's a really egalitarian attitude that I see from the execution of your own work to like the bridging of your community projects, which I feel is like something that I totally respond to and respect. So in working with you, I've always appreciated how much I have yet to accomplish for myself, and like being able to engage with the community and have a reciprocal relationship. So I appreciate learning from you as an example. So I definitely want to give you an applaud for that.
thank you. Yeah, and like I feel these times are really frustrating to that. It's like I don't know, like there's this communal zine fest going around, like digital thing that we're like just like emailing with, that hopefully um, like a digital response to Zine Fest, right? But aside from that, David and I were talking about what does it mean to like make zines when you like can't go out or like can't exchange stuff with people, or to have like a workshop. Like yeah, there's a lot of workshops online, and I'm on the computer all day, but there's people that are like just like aren't, right, like um don't like that format. So like what do you do like right now to interact with people that either don't have access or just like don't like that format? Like it's not functional for them. And yeah, it's kind of I mean we're all in the same space, like who knows, but it's just been kind of frustrating.
Let me ask you the third question about this thing, which I think is going to lead to like some more tangents. So now that how has COVID changed your lifestyle in how it was before to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I mean, like I was starting to say, it's just like frustrating to not be able to engage, especially like teaching. I feel like in the last couple of years, I think it's 2015 when I started working with Las Fotos Project, um, which is a project from LA that Rebecca Goldschmidt brought to Tijuana, and I started tutoring with them, and that was when I really started considering myself an educator. Um, Myself an educator. And it's been really strengthened lately by like workshops and working with certain institutions, and just to be like completely cut off from that because you're a part-time employee and like there's no kids so there's no work, or there's yeah you won this grant with the school but the school's not functioning, so like what, like we don't need the artists anymore. um, and I know like a lot of people are doing, like I said, workshops online, and I know there's a way, there's stuff, more things that we could be doing, but just that like being cut off from like a group that's like in development or from like a person you're in contact with is like really weird. And I think also like types of relationships, right? You're cut off from your friends, but you can call them up whenever. But you're just not gonna like call up a random kid because it's like it's a classroom setting that you're in, right? It's a specific type of relationship that you have. So just I think like having that pulled out from your life is really weird. And in terms of like art, like I was like, oh yeah, like we get to stay home, like we get unemployment, like this is good. Like you mentioned earlier, it's gonna be like a residency, but I feel like my personality has not allowed for that, which is really frustrating. Um, I like I'm like I'm not gonna say I'm the only person, but yes, I ended up being the person that like doesn't have time during like COVID or like stay at home. I was like offering to like get my parents groceries or like running other errands, and I'm not like trying to praise myself. I'm just saying that like for somehow my brain just tries to find other stuff to do instead of like focusing on finishing that drawing that I was making. But I think it's like part of the process too, so it's fine.
It's definitely shifting gears from like this capitalistic kind of drive to something other, and it's a real challenge. It's a real challenging gear to change because it's not really downshifting and it's not really upshifting. It's just like changing the motor.
Mm-hmm.
So that is interesting. In regards to how the Tijuana Zine Fest is going to move forward, have you had any conversations about how and if the Zine Fest is going to happen this year?
I feel like we had a conversation. We got an email, or we saw a post, Scene Fest parentheses S, like Scene Fests, which is a collective of Scene Fests that are trying to organize something digital together, and we're excited to follow up with that. But Tijuana Scene Fest specifically, like, we're not sure. Like, honestly, like, again, I don't want to bum anybody out, but I don't like July and August, like being outside in a crowd, like I don't think that's gonna happen. And even if it legally were to happen, I just don't feel comfortable. Like all of my favorite people are like over 60, so like I'm not gonna do that. So we had talked about. So one of the frustrations for this year is that like we appreciate the zine format because it is a space to like share information and just like self publish, like put all yourself out there without expecting much in return. And we feel like this format of like tabling and selling has kind of like strayed us from that sharing of information. Like you see tables, you see people sitting behind them. Now it's like an art bazaar. And like the point was not to sell shit. And that's like sure, like people should get paid for their work, but there's other forms of payment and exchange and interaction. And the fact that everything is just like a little zine market like really bothers me. So we were already talking about how could we change this into more of like a workshop intense or conference style thing. But like I said, I really like working with David because we're like very opposite in how we function in the world. For me, having like 3 days of like Zoom zine workshops would be fine, but for somebody like him, like he would tune out like minute 10. So it's like how do we keep doing something that is not just on one channel? I was also thinking of like, I don't know, maybe doing like zine drops or like, maybe doing something more involved with like street artists. Like the world is there. Like, we shouldn't go out in crowds, but we can still go out and like take up some sort of space. So I don't know, we're still processing, but yeah.
I do think that this creates a scenario to be really creative about engagement. So, like how things were done before can't be done now, and I think that that's a really interesting place to start with. But I too feel really insecure about gatherings as a whole. Like I'm not really sure what to feel about. I'm not even sure if I'm comfortable going to galleries and like seeing if there's like, I mean, if there's a group of more than 9 people, I think I might like have like an internal spaz Like, I'll be like, I don't know, do I touch anything? Do I wear gloves? Like, you know, like will there be like a revolving door like with like 5 people at a time or something like that? Like, will the air in the space be circulated with a fan? You know, all these other kinds of considerations are now like permeating like my capacity to see what the art experience was like before, and like now, like it's really compelling because you have to be uh, like overly cautious and creative at the same time.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify that when I say like I'm down for like a full day of Zoom workshops, I say that like right now, right? I definitely think we should be like aware and cautious of like being cornered into like a type of life where we're like all digital and like all separated and like 2 people in a room at a time. Like I'm not trying to like condone that. But right now, like July 2020, like what do we do? Um, yeah, and I think we're gonna need to give it some more like communal thought.
There was a project that launched this weekend here in LA. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like something like 52 artists contributed to this project where like they installed artwork somewhere in the city of Los Angeles. And so if you're on the mailing list, you get a Google Maps, and then you can scavenger hunt art throughout the city. And so it's like people hanging art on their like gates or on trees or different kinds of places. And I thought that was a real kind of creative way of like envisioning like an art interaction, but like the effort is still huge though, because Los Angeles is enormous. So like if a person was going to see these like 50 different spots, you're going to need to have like, you know, several weeks to do it. I mean, it's a very big effort, and it creates a bigger sense of community. But at the same time, like this can't be the only way, you know.
Yeah, but that sounds really exciting. I just got like a
It does,
excited. Yeah.
because it gets you out. It gets you out of the house. It gives you a purpose. You have like a direction. You know, that does help out for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so thank you for hosting us and letting us come into your workspace and showing us some more of your projects. We have a few minutes here. Is there anything that you want to maybe like chime on that we haven't chimed on already or talked about?
I mean, I'll just plug 3 people that have been with me this morning. You're wearing Urbano's shirt, and this is a illustration he left in our communal bathroom. Um, so Urbano Mata, you can look for him. Also, you can't see it on camera, and it's turned. Wait, I'm gonna turn the camera, and you tell me if you can see my shirt. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see it. It's like no kids in cages, right? And it's
Yes.
like
So this
the
is
border.
Fuck La Migra, a screen printer from Mexico City that was part of that like residency I did with Oda. I love this shirt. You can look them up. Fuck La Migra. And before I had to leave my office because of Wi-Fi, um, I was drinking from this Yee Mendoza cup that says todo bueno. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that surround me daily, but those were the 3 that I was functioning with this morning. So I just wanted to.
This is some great shout outs. Luisa, let me ask you, since you are the eyes and ears of us in Tijuana right now, if you are in the Southern California area, do you feel like a person could go and visit Tijuana at this moment?
Um, I don't know. Like, I'm having a lot of frustration with this whole just like COVID thing, right? Like, it's my birthday next week, and I was Googling, like, if we're all in quarantine, can we, like, meet together since we're all in quarantine and, like, we're not sick? But I feel like we still should, like, keep our distance. So just in general, I would say no. If there's, like, a specific, I don't know, artist or, like, business that you want to support, I think there could be safe ways to imagine doing that. But just publicly and as like a broad answer, you know, I'd say like let's find other ways to do that. Yeah.
I think that's real smart. It's real
Yeah.
smart. It's just kind of crazy. Like, I think about how this country is like willing to open up, and it's just like blasphemy. You know, it's just absolute blasphemy. Like this top down. I don't give a fuck about everybody. It's just like it's just too much for me sometimes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like I think this whole like border community becomes more evident in like a non-fun way with this whole disease thing, because like we have very different healthcare systems. I mean, they both suck, but we really don't have a lot of equipment in TJ. So it's like people are gonna go to work and like your customers are gonna like go to work in the States and your customers are gonna like infect them and then they're gonna come home to like a system that like really cannot support taking care of them. So that's yeah.
Really great way of putting it all into perspective, Luisa. I really appreciate it. Um, well, outside of being an outstanding educator and educating
And then
people,
something fun.
yeah,
That was really sad. Just show you art again.
yeah. So thank you for being such an awesome educator and a role model. I know I learned a lot from being around you as a whole. So thank you for letting us come into your space and showing us some of your work. Um, Anything else?
No, thank you for making me wake up and making me be around people and yeah, and doing these collabs.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to continue seeing that, and maybe we can make more because I really love everything you do, and I would love to make more because they're so great and beautiful and outstanding. So I'm down. I'm way down to make more. Um, but yeah, have a wonderful day today, Luisa. I can't tell you enough how much I love talking to you. So I hope that we get to do this again in person soon, and that you know, I wish you all the best today.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye, Luisa.
Bye.